Hey everyone, welcome back and thank you for checking in. And again, I'm back with another Photoshop tutorial and I hope this will help you to improve your Photoshop skills. And I'm so amazed to see my Patreon growing so fast. I didn't even expect that. And thank you so much guys. Thank you so much for showing your love and support on my Patreon. And if you want to be a part of my Patreon family, please check on the description list below. And also this PSD file is available for my Patreon supporter. And yes, with that note, let's dive into the video. So here we are in Photoshop, and first thing first, let's create a composition. So for that, go to File, click on New, and I will just go over 11 by 11 size and just keep the resolution as 300, color mode to RGB, bitrate to 16, and let's keep the rest as default, and let's click on Create. And right after that, let's create a solid color and let's make it a little darker, something like that. Let's drag and drop this background image right over here, and let's adjust the position. So Control T, let's keep it right over here. I'd like to make a cut out in the middle, so let's select the layer and let's go to the lasso selection tool and let's make a selection. And I want to make it like really rough, it doesn't have to be perfect. And let's make an invert selection. So for that, press Control Shift and I to make an inverse selection, and let's create a layer mask. So there is a cutout in the middle, and let's change the hue and saturation for this background. So select this layer, go to Image, go to Adjustment, and let's go for hue and saturation, and let's drop down the saturation maybe somewhere around here, and let's go for a kind of warmer tone, and maybe let's drop down some more. Yep, something like that. Now let's drag and drop this fire image right over here, and let's make a copy, Control J, and let's turn off the visibility for this layer, and let's select this layer and let's change the blending mode to screen. And I want to remove those hard edges over here, so for that let's press Control L for level, and let's make this a little darker. Yep, and let's increase the mid-tone just a little bit. Yep, something like that. And let's keep it right over here, and now Control T, right click, and let's click on warp. So it's a warp, and sorry, on my last video I was saying wrap on my every video, so it's a warp. So select this one and let's try to follow the edges, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And Control J, let's make a copy, Control T, and again Control T, let's do some warp. Let's make another copy, Control J, Control T, and let's keep it right over here, Control T, warp, and yep, just keep on doing the same thing, keep on following. So it's just a repetitive process. And Control J, Control T, Control T, warp. And again one more copy, Control J, Control T, and let's keep it maybe right over here, and Control T. Let's add another warp. Yep, somewhere around, something like that. And just to add some variation, let's drag and drop this fire image right over here, and let's change it to screen, and Control T. Let's warp it. Yep, something like that. So it's up to you, like how you like to make the look. Again, Control T. Let's move it maybe right over here, and let's drag and drop this image right over here, and let's change the blending mode to screen, Control T, and let's add some warp. So yep, something like that. And let's make a one more copy, Control J, Control T. Let's keep it right over here, and Control right click, let's click on warp, and yep, something like that. And let's get rid of these hard edges, so Control L, and let's make this a little darker. Yep, something like that. And same thing for this one, Control L, let's make it a little darker. Now let's drag and drop the main PNG background just right over here. Yes, and right click, let's convert it as a smart object, and Control T, let's make it bigger, maybe somewhere around this size. Yep, maybe right over here. And let's do some color adjustment for this layer. So select this layer, go to the filter, and let's go to the camera raw filter, and from here let's increase the noise reduction, increase the color noise reduction, and let's drop down the saturation for orange, and let's drop down for reds too, just a little touch. And from here let's increase the clarity, and let's increase the texture, maybe something like that. And let's drop down the highlights, maybe right around here, and let's increase the shadow just a little touch, and let's click on OK. And let's drag this layer under this portal, and now let's make a copy, Control J, and let's move this all the way to the top. Yep, something like that. You know what, like before that, let's keep it under a group, so Control G, and let's rename this as an image, and same thing, let's keep Control G, let's rename it as a image top. Now let's create a layer mask, and let's fill the layer mask with black color, and let's go back to the brush, and using a white brush, and let's get back his fits back, and maybe this part too. Yep, somewhere, something like that. Or maybe let's get back his hands too. Yep, maybe something like that. And let's make a copy of this fire, and Control J, and let's bring it above this one, and maybe let's do same thing for here too, and let's make a copy, Control J, and let's move it maybe right over here, Control T, let's fix these hard edges. So yep, something like that. Let's drag and drop this image right over here, and let's keep this all the way to the bottom, Control T, let's move it, let's add some rotation. Yep, let's make it something like that. let's drag and drop this image right over here, and let's keep it under this layer. Control T. Let's increase the size, and let's go to the filter and let's apply the same camera raw filter, and let's see how it looks. And same thing for this layer. Select this layer, go to the filter, and let's apply the same camera raw filter. Alright, and let's, for these backgrounds, let's add a hue and saturation, and let's drop down the saturation just a little touch, maybe somewhere around here. And let's add a new layer and go to the brush, and let's go for a kind of darker brush, maybe something like that. Let's change the blending mode to overlay. Yeah, maybe overlay looks good to me. Let's change the brush opacity to 100%. And now let's make it a little brighter. And let's add a new layer, and let's same thing, let's change it to soft light, and let's add some colors right over here. And let's add a new layer on top of that background, and let's go for a kind of yellowish tone, and let's change it to soft light, and let's add some color tone right over here just to give a kind of warmer look. Now let's go to this image, and let's add a new layer and go to the brush, and let's go for a kind of this color tone, and right click, create clipping max, and let's add some colors right over here. And same thing on these sides too. You know what, like let's change the blending mode to screen. Yep, I think screen looks good to me. Yep, screen. And let's add some right over here, and let's change the color to a little lighter orange tone. Yep, maybe something like that, and let's add some right over here. And let's go to the very top, maybe right over here, and let's add a new layer, create a clipping max, and same thing, let's change it to screen, and let's add some colors right over here. And let's add a new layer, and let's go for a kind of similar color, and let's change it to soft light, and let's drop down the opacity, maybe just a little touch. Yep, something like that. And you know what, like I feel like these grunges are too much, so maybe let's select a new layer. Let's fill this with a kind of darker color, and let's drop down the opacity, maybe something like that, and let's create a clipping max. Yep, I think this is pretty okay. Now let's add a color LUT on very top, so go over here, add a color lookup, and from here click on load. So I'm going to use my Cine LUT, or maybe I'm going to use my Mood LUT, and if you want to download the same LUT, please check on the description list below. So select this one and click on load. So this is how it turned out. and let's add a new layer, and let's edit, go to fill, and let's fill it with 50% gray, and let's change the blending mode to soft light, and let's do some dulls and burn. So go over here, let's add some dulls. So I want to make those parts to be really brighter. So this is how it looks. Now let's make some of these parts darker. So let's go to the burn tool, and let's add some burn right over here, maybe over here, and maybe right over here too. Now let's add a color balance. So go over here, let's add a color balance, and let's increase the red all the way up. Yep, just to give the kind of warmer look. Yep, somewhere around this. Let's go more toward magenta, and let's go a little bit towards the yellow. Yep, something like that. You know what, like let's merge this layer, Control Shift Alt and E, and let's go to the filter, and let's go to the blur, and let's apply a radial blur, and let's start it from here, and let's drop down the amount to around 20, and let's click on OK. So now this is what we have, and now let's create a layer mask, and let's fill it with black, and let's go back to the brush, and with a white brush let's get some of these parts back, and it's completely up to you, because if you like to add a motion blur, it just give a little dynamic feel. Now let's merge this image again, Control Shift Alt and E. Now let's go to the filter, and let's go to the neural filter. Let's turn on that style transfer, and let's go for this one, and from here let's drop down the brightness, and let's click on preserve color, and let's click on focus object, and let's click on OK. So this is what we have. Now let's create a layer mask, and let's change the blending mode to hard light, and let's fill that layer mask with black color. And let's go to the brush, and using a white brush, and let's get those effects back on some of these parts, maybe right over here. Now let's do a final touch-up. So let's create a new layer and go to the brush, and let's go for a kind of warmer brush, maybe something like that, and let's change the blending mode to screen, and let's hide these hard edges right over here, and let's drop down the brush size, and let's add a little right over here, and maybe right over here too, and let's drop down the opacity just a little touch. Let's add some right over here, maybe right over here too. Yep, something like that. And same thing, let's create a new layer, let's change it to screen, and let's change the color to a more lighter color, and let's change the brush size, let's drop down the opacity, now let's drag and drop this image right over here, and Control T, let's make it bigger, and let's change the blending mode to screen, and Control L, let's make it a little darker. Yep, something like that. And now let's add some text. And that's the final, and I hope you guys learned something new from this tutorial, and see you guys in the next video.